Hi everyone, and welcome to the What's New webinar for the latest version of Mission Control. Version 1.59 will be released onto the Salesforce App Exchange on the 10th of September 2021. So during this webinar, what we're going to do is talk you through all of the key new features, and we'll dive into a demo afterwards. So in terms of just a very quick high level of what's new, we've got some amazing new features coming in and also some really cool enhancements to existing features as well. So certainly the thing that I'm most excited about personally is the retrospective board. So that's a really cool Kanban that allows you as a team to collaboratively carry out a retrospective. We're also introducing the ability to create holiday allowance records against each of your resources, and you can track the usage of that, so the drawdown from those holiday allowances as and when people are booking holidays. A few different enhancements to the meeting manager, main one being the ability to generate a PDF of the meeting notes. We've also added in a couple of additional generation methods on the opportunity order generation functionality. Fair bit of work has been done on the project builder to make it a far more flexible tool, allowing you to have multiple different conversion methods. So being able to convert those requirements and user stories, there's a few different ways of doing that now. Various enhancements to the timesheet that we'll cover off, and we've also introduced 2 email notifications that can be issued out relating to timesheet submissions. A few different enhancements to the action pad just to be able to get to the data that you need a bit quicker. Minor enhancements on the requirement and user story, being able to track delivery status, and some changes to the resource assignment wizard, along with a few minor enhancements elsewhere in the system. So looking at the key features there, so the retrospective, as I say, this is a really, I'm personally really excited to have this this tool in the system. So it's a Kanban interface, and the idea behind it is you're going to be using it as a lessons learned process. So carrying out a retrospective where you come together as a team and review and reflect on how well a certain project or a certain sprint within a project was achieved. So the idea is that you're capturing the learnings. So the board reflects the retrospective, and then the individual cards reflect the learnings that you've observed. So you're defining those into certain opinions of, did this work well? Does it need improvement? Is it something that we want to try differently next time? And you can also categorize those learnings. So, was it process related? Was it resource related? Testing, documentation? And I guess the real value that's going to come from the retrospective is it's going to be building up a knowledge bank. So as you undertake those retrospectives, it will be building up a knowledge bank of those learnings. So as you're about to embark on a new project, you can jump into the retrospective and say, okay, well, I've got a certain type of project coming in. I want to see, what worked well, what didn't work well on previous projects, so I can try and avoid making the same mistakes going into this new project. The holiday allowance, so this is a new object that's been added in that sits underneath the role record, and what it allows you to do is track the annual allowance that's been allocated to an individual person. So, for example, I might have been allocated 20 days of annual leave for the year. So then, as I'm booking holidays, I can relate those holidays to this holiday allowance, letting me see, how much I've been used, what's remaining. You've also got the ability to define whether the holiday allowance can accrue, and if it can accrue, how much of that can accrue as well. So as a part of that, what you will be able to do is, as you can see on the screen here, you can drop a report chart onto your Lightning app page, summarizing the holiday allowance remaining for that individual person. So the meeting manager had a couple of enhancements added to this feature. So main one being you can now actually generate a PDF of the meeting notes. So that will record, it will list out the attendees. It will list out the various agenda items and any resulting agenda tasks and indicate whether they're resolved or still outstanding. So if you're looking to, if it's a meeting regarding a specific project relating to a client, you can quickly generate that PDF and then download it and email it off to the client. The other feature that we got in there came as a request from some customers. They wanted the ability to promote an agenda task to become an action on a project. So we've introduced that feature in there as well. So a couple of additional generation method options have been added onto the auto generation functionality within Mission Control. So currently, the existing functionality, you can use the generation methods of opportunity, products, or products no duplicates. We had some clients where they had a requirement where they had a general project that they always want to apply. So for example, it might be that they have a project initiation phase at the start, and they also have a project closing phase at the end. So they're not necessarily products that get added to the opportunity, but they're things that need to be included in every project. So the products options weren't working. So what we've done is introduce these two new generation methods where you can still use the products and products no duplicates to get that flexibility of building up the content of the project based on what's been sold on the opportunity, but you can also use a base template as well. So you can have those generic mandatory required milestones as well as building up what's been sold. So Project Builder, previously you were able to convert a requirement into an action by dragging it on the Project Builder from the Requirements tab. You would drag that over into a milestone, and that would convert the requirement into an action. We've introduced some additional conversion methods, so you can still convert a requirement into an action, and all of the user stories relating to that requirement will get parented to relate to the action. The new additions are you can now convert a requirement to a milestone. So the requirement will become the milestone, and any user story under that requirement will become an individual action. The alternative is that you can convert individual user stories. So for example, I might have a requirement on my program. It might have 3 or 4 different user stories, and I need to take one of those user stories and put it into sprint 1. I need to put 2 into sprint 3 and so on. So you've got that granular level of conversion that you can now apply. So timesheet, primarily just adding in additional functionality on customer requests. So there's a save and submit warning. So if you click the save and submit button and you haven't logged enough time that equates to your hours per week target, then you would receive a warning notification. Not every customer wanted to have that, as people were logging their time through the week. So you've got the ability to toggle that on and off. I think the two main feature enhancements around the timesheet are you can now add your own custom fields to the time log modal, and you've also got the ability to associate time to issues. So you'll still be logging it against an action, but you can also associate it to issues that relate to that action as well. So 2 new email notifications have been added into the product as well. So individual people can receive a submission reminder if they haven't logged time, sufficient time that week. So for example, we might choose to send out the submission reminder at 4 p.m. on a Friday, and that will go to anyone who hasn't logged the required percentage of hours. And then what you can also do is issue out an exception email to their manager. So as the manager of 4 or 5 different people, I can receive an email, let's say on a Monday morning, identifying those people that didn't log sufficient time last week, so then I can follow up with them to make sure their timesheets are up to date. So the action pad has had a few different enhancements, main one being custom settings to give you the ability to configure how the action pad works in a bit more granular detail. So you can choose to hide some of the fields that are displayed by default. You've also got the ability to add in your own custom fields, up to 5 custom fields onto the action log as well. We've introduced a keyword search filter where you can quickly go in, and you might have like an action pad that's got 500 actions on it, and you just want to quickly search for within those records, quickly search for something. So you can do that now, and you can also apply filters on the project overview action pad. So previously, the filters were only available on the standalone action pad, whereas now you can apply a filter. So again, an example might be there that you're choosing to filter out any actions that have already been completed. So you're only seeing a list of actions that are still needing to be done. So Gantt chart, there's a few things here, primarily around, I guess, custom configuration, so allowing you to choose what can be done. So against any of the tabs, so obviously if you double click onto any of the levels of the Gantt chart, so the project, the milestone, the action, or the checklist, you get access to the modal, like the record modal, which gives you access to the like the record detail. So for example, on the action level, I can see some key fields. I can log time. I can get through to the full record page. What we've also done now across all 4 of those levels is provided a new tab that gives you access to the to chatter for that record. And you've also got the ability to control which of those tabs within each record are visible and which one loads by default. So, for example, if you're not logging time in mission control, then you might choose to hide the log time tab from the action modal. So you can do that on individual role records. We've also made an adjustment to the timeline. So previously, if you wanted to reschedule something, you would need to click the Add Week to End button several times to increase the timeline on the Gantt chart. Now, as you drag things over, it will just automatically add that. So what was previously happening is if you used the data table and you edited the dates over on the left hand side, if the dates ended up being outside of the existing timeline, the action would look like it had disappeared until you clicked the Add Week to End button. Now, as soon as you change those dates in the table, the timeline will automatically adjust. So what that does mean is the Add Week to Start and Add Week to End buttons have been removed, and the timeline will adjust automatically. We've also introduced on the console a centralized Gantt chart settings section, so you can override individual people's settings. So if you want to make sure everyone's having the same setup on the Gantt chart, then you can set that on the control pad and override it for individuals. So very minor update here. We've introduced a new field on both the requirement and the user story objects called delivery status. So that will actually be kept up to date automatically based on what's happening on the action. So if for example, if you convert a requirement to an action, and then the action status is being updated, the requirement delivery status will be updated accordingly as well. The reassignment wizard That's had enhancements made to it too. So previously you were able to use it on the project record and on the role record. You're now also able to use that on the milestone and the action records as well. And just some minor enhancements here. So we added some logic into the project trigger. So previously, if you deleted a project, the related records of milestones, actions, checklists, they would all get deleted as well. What wasn't being deleted were the dependency records. So we've just added logic in there, so that will clean that up. So going forward, there'll be no orphaned dependency records when you delete a project. The Resource Assignment Wizard has had a persistent setting, so you can change between days and weeks. That previously wasn't being remembered. It is now. We've also added in some custom fields onto all of the key objects that have a role record set as the owner. So, for example, the project owner, the action owner, and so on. Because we use the role object instead of the user object, key Salesforce functionality when you're doing things like list views or reports, you can't say only show me records that I own, because you might not necessarily have created it and owned the record, but your role has been assigned as the action owner. So we've added in a formula field that will basically display a 1 or a 0 depending on whether your user is the user that relates to the role that is assigned as the action owner, as an example. So that way you can use that as a dynamic filter on list views and reports, and say, right, I want to make one report and make it available to everyone, but I only want to see them to see the actions that they're responsible for. So you can create that report, and then using that current user field, you can apply a filter to say only show me records where that field equals 1. So if two people look at the same report, they're going to see different results based on whether they are the action owner or not. We've also introduced some KPI tracking fields. So all of this is documented in the release notes, but really just to provide you with the ability to do some exception reporting. So, for example, there's a KPI tracking field that gives you an indication of whether there's a variance of days between the start date and the baseline start date. So you can actually run a report and say, okay, well, how many of my projects started later than I thought they would, or how many finished later than I thought I would, or is my forecast profit and loss less than my scheduled profit and loss? So ultimately, there's four KPI tracking fields that have been introduced that give you the ability to just track the performance of your projects. Project overview. So previously, regardless of whether you had a role record or not, the detail tab would always be visible on the project overview component, and you didn't have the ability to turn that off. So what we've done now is introduce that as a configurable tab. So on each person's role record, you can specify whether the detail tab is visible within the project overview component. You can also set it as the default as well. And there's also been a few minor changes on the overview tab of the project overview. You can now log time from there, and you can access checklist items without having to use the drop down on the right hand side. And obviously we're pleased to say that we had some huge compliments from customers around the project status report that was introduced in the last release. One feature request that did come through from a number of customers was the ability to choose to exclude certain records from the project detail section. So example might be that we don't want to include any checklists, or we have a specific milestone that's more for internal use and we don't want to include that in the status report we're issuing to customers. So we've introduced some checkbox fields on the milestone, the action, and the checklist item that give you the ability to say whether that's going to be excluded or not. So if you have a milestone that you don't want to include, then you set the field on the milestone, and that will filter down through all related actions and all related checklists for that milestone as well. And the other request that we had was the ability to show different custom fields on the project summary page versus what we show on the project detail page. So we've added in an additional field set. So the existing field set that you already have will take care of what's displayed on the project summary, and then there's a new set of there's a new field set that will drive what fields are displayed on the project row of the project detail. Okay, so that covers off at a high level everything. So what we're going to do now is jump in and take a look at some of those key features in a bit more detail. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the retrospective board first of all. So obviously an important part of any project is really reviewing how it went, identifying what worked well, what could we do differently, did anything completely stump us? So the retrospective is a Kanban that's been introduced, and it sits underneath the project. So you can see here I can be running a retrospective in context of one individual project. So I'm on my project overview. I've got my retro tab available on my project overview component, and then I get the retro board here. I'm just going to jump over to the standalone one, which you can also access from the navigation menu, and you'll see here that I've already held some retrospectives across some projects. So what we're looking at here are the columns are driven by the opinion. So the opinion being it worked well, it needs improvement. This is something that we would like to try differently next time, or this is something that we completely hit a brick wall on. So we really need to dive in and find out what we can do about that. So each of the cards represent an individual learning, and people can create new cards by expanding the Add Learning tab, and you're relating the learning to a project, to a retrospective, and then putting in the learning name and hitting enter. And we'll do this in a moment. But for each learning card, obviously you can see the like an opinion icon. So thumbs up for worked well, thumbs down for needs improvement, something that we probably try and have to go and investigate, or something that we really puzzled us. So each card will show you the learning name, the ID of the learning record. Links through to the retrospective and the project, and you can also see here the individual categories. So, for example, if this documentation learning, if I want to go in and categorize this, I can click on this eye icon here. That will open up the learning summary, where I can then just go in and edit that and add in what I think is, what categories does this learning relate to. So as I do that, select them and then save that, and then the card gets updated to reflect those categories. So quickly identifying, obviously I could filter this down as well and look for any learning, regardless of whether it worked well, needs improvement, or try next. I could be filtering that down based on a specific category. Now, if you also decide, actually, I've put this into worked well and it didn't work so well, it should have gone into the needs improvement, then you can just drag that over and move that over to the right, to the new column. Now, a retrospective is meant to be collaborative. So imagine sitting with a virtual team, a team that's dispersed into various locations. You want to be able to quickly see what other people are adding to the retro board as and when the retrospective is going on. So what you can do is we've got this feature over on the right hand side. You'll see this play button. Now, if I click that, and it turns to a pause button. What that means is I've just enabled automatic update polling. So if I've got my board loaded here and a colleague of mine is also participating in the retrospective on another machine, and they add a new learning, it's automatically going to load into my board, so I can see that, and then so it can be a really collaborative, interactive experience for everyone taking part, rather than just one person controlling the board. So First of all, what you would, from scratch, what we would need to do is create a retro. So if I click on that, that allows me to go through, create a retrospective, relate it to a project, set the date, and so on. Um, once I've done that, I'm able to start adding learnings. So I can click in here. I can say, okay, well, I'm doing a learning. So I'm doing a retrospective on this project. That will then filter down and show me all of the retros that we've got relating to that project, and I can select which one it applies to. And then I can put in the learning. So if I put in here, customer collaboration, I'm going to say that worked really well on this project. So hit enter. So that creates the learning. And then again, as I say, we could go in and start categorizing it. I could also be collaborating with colleagues on that as well. So as I mentioned, what's going to be great about this retrospective board is it will become a knowledge bank for you to reference before you initiate a new project. So if I'm going in and I'm looking for, let's say I'm just about to start a new project and we need to, I need to go in and make sure I know what worked well and what didn't work so well on previous projects. I can come in here and I could be applying filters. So I can come in here and apply filters across a number of factors. So I could be looking at specific projects, or I could be looking at projects with a certain category. So for example, if I'm doing an internal development project, show me all learnings that we've documented from all of our previous internal development projects. Or I might be looking specifically for learnings to do with documentation. So only show me learnings that have been categorized as being related to a documentation category. So we're super excited to see how people put this to use. We actually already carried out our own retrospective for this release using the retrospective board a few days ago. So it was great to see the team being able to interact in a far more collaborative way than how we used to run them. So yeah, look forward to hearing your feedback on this one. So you can also add it to, as well as being available as the standalone tab and on the project overview, you could also add it as a Lightning component to a Lightning app page for the retrospective or for a milestone as well. So if you're using your milestones as sprints within a project, you might choose to do a retro at the end of each sprint. So you could be doing that directly from that milestone. We're going to take a look at the new holiday allowance feature now. So holiday allowance is a custom object that has been added in, sitting underneath the role record, that allows you to identify the number of days of a certain holiday type that have been allocated to an individual role for a period of time. So, for example, you might have 20 days annual leave over a period of 1 year. So the holiday allowance object will need to be added to the related list tab on the page layout of the role. So if I scroll down, you'll see that I've already created some holiday allowances. So you can see that I've got a holiday allowance for 2020, a holiday allowance for 2021. I've got some volunteer time off, and I've also got some sick leave allowance as well. So if I jump in and take a look at one of these, so you'll see that it's relating to a particular role. I'm specifying, the actual number of days that are contained within the allowance, when it's, when the allowance period starts and finishes. I can also indicate, does this accrue, and if it does, what percentage can be accrued. So, some businesses might not accrue any holidays. Some might accrue a certain percentage. Others might accrue the full amount. Now, when if I just go back and create a new holiday allowance, so you'll see that my accrual percentage is already being set to 25%, and that is because that's because I've got a custom setting on the control pad where I can set the business default. So I'll just jump over to I'm on the control pad of the console. If I scroll down to my custom settings, you'll see that there's a new setting in here where I can specify the default value for the accrual percentage field. So if you put in 25% there, every time you create a new holiday allowance record, it will be set to 25%. Now, obviously, that can be overridden. In some instances, you might accrue annual leave, you might not accrue voluntary time off, or you might accrue sick leave but not annual leave. So you've got the flexibility around doing that. So first of all, you put in the name, which role it relates to, what is the allowance, and does it accrue or not. So ultimately, you can uncheck that box, specify the accrual percentage, date, and then you can indicate what type it is. So is it annual leave, volunteer time off, or sick leave? So now that I've got my actual holiday allowance is in there, I'm also able to then associate holidays to that. So as and when I'm creating holidays, I'm able to associate that to a holiday allowance record. So if I click into my holiday here, so what I would be able to do is a new field that's been added on the holiday record is I can associate this to a holiday allowance record. So if I do that, that then gets associated to the holiday allowance, and then it will reduce the number of it will increase the number of days on my used field, and therefore reduce the amount that I've got remaining. So ultimately, I might. So if I look into here, you can see that I haven't used any of my holiday from last year. Only 25% of it accrues. So I've got 5 days remaining from last year, plus my 20 days from this year. So there's a couple of reports included in the feature enhancement that allow you to see the summary across all team members, but also there's one that gives you the information by an individual role. So what that means is you can, on your role page in Lightning Experience, you can add a report chart using the Lightning App Builder. You can just drop the report chart on, and it's this holiday allowance remaining by role, and then you would apply a filter to be only showing the data in context of the role record you're looking at. So what you can do here is actually see a summary. So I can see that I've got 25 days of annual leave, I've got 10 days of sick leave, and I've got 4 days of volunteer time off. So as and when I start booking holidays and associating those to those holiday allowance records, this will give me an accurate real-time picture of my current holiday allowance. So the meeting manager's had a couple of enhancements added to it. The main one is the ability to generate a PDF of the meeting notes. So you'll see here I'm on a meeting manager. I've got a specific meeting selected. I can see the agenda items, the notes, and any agenda tasks as well. So up in the top right now, we've got the PDF icon. So if I click that, that will open up a PDF of the meeting notes that I can then download and email off. So what this shows me, obviously it's going to be pulling in my company logo as per the settings on my control pad. It will show me who was in attendance or who was in apology. I can see each of the individual agenda items with any notes that have been entered. I can see whether that was resolved or not, as well as any agenda tasks that are sitting underneath those agenda items, and again, who's responsible for them and whether they've been, whether they've been resolved. So, quick way of being able to generate the PDF, and then you can download that and distribute it as required to whoever needs to see it. The other minor enhancement was we've had a few customers saying that they're identifying agenda tasks throughout the meeting, but some of those eventually end up becoming actions on projects. So what we've now done against the action here, against the agenda task here. What you're able to do is click on this action icon, and that will open up the ability for you to create a new action. So the name of the agenda task gets populated in as the name of the action. The action owner is populated based on who owns the task. So then it's just a case of populating which project and milestone it needs to get added to, and any hours and dates if applicable. So once you save that, the agenda task will still exist, but you can then have the action created on the project as well. A couple of other things that we've added in, just really to make the user experience a little more enjoyable and seamless, is previously if you were marking this as resolved, you would have to uncheck this. What we've got now is it will automatically change from one to the other and immediately save the record for you, so you can quickly toggle between the two status values. So that's operating at the agenda item level and at the individual agenda task level as well. So we're now going to take a look at the new generation method options that we've added in as part of the opportunity auto generation functionality. So previously or currently, you can have three options. So if we scroll down to the generation method field, the existing options that you will probably see are opportunity, products, and products no duplicates. There's now been two additional generation method options added. So base template plus products, base template plus products no duplicates. So as an existing customer, you will need to manually add these values to ensure that it reflects what's in the list here. So the base template plus products is similar to the products option, and base template plus products no duplicates is similar to the products no duplicates. The main thing being is what it will allow you to do is clone the entirety of the base template that you specify, plus it will add in any milestones related to the products that have been sold. So if I just talk you through the example that I've got here. So if I was using products or products no duplicates, I would be specifying a template that contains information that I want to use when generating the project based on the products that I've sold over on the right here. The difference with the base template is I can add everything from the base template, plus I can add in anything from a second project that contains the product related milestones. So I've got an example here where I'm implementing mission control for a customer. I've sold some things like licenses. I've sold some data importing, training, and some setup. So I want to add in the milestones that are applicable to those products, but I also have some like top and tail milestones that I do on every project, regardless of what I've sold. I want to always include specific milestones. So I've got my base template here. So this is one template, and I've got two milestones of project initiation and customer go live. So for example, when we, regardless of what we've sold on the project, we're also always going to initiate a project by assigning resources to it, scheduling project status reports, and adding in stakeholders. And then at the end of the project, we want to add users to the onboarding campaign, provide them with support details, and register them for the learning portal. Now that's everything on the base template. And then over on my other template, I've got the individual milestones that are related to products being added. So that's the main difference on the base template options is you need two separate project templates. So anything that's on this base template, which I specify on my project template, everything within that project will be added to as milestones and actions on the project that's auto-generated. And then anything from the second project will only be added if it relates to a product that's been sold. So for example here, so I've chosen the product, the base template and products no duplicates method, and I've set my base template. So I'm going to just generate my project now. So project gets created. Now if I click into that, So what we'll see here is it's created, it's created everything from the base template. So it's created the project record, it's created the 2 milestones of project initiation and customer go live, and then it's also automatically pulled in anything from the other project based on the products that have been sold. So I've sold my setup, my data migration, and my training. So I've been able to dynamically build the milestones based on what's been added at the opportunity level, but I've also pulled in my required milestones regardless of what I've sold. So just a couple of additional options there for you to have a bit more flexibility around how your projects are auto-generated from an opportunity. Okay, looking at the project builder, we've added in a couple of additional methods of how you can convert records from the program through to the project. So previously, the conversion method was that you would convert a requirement to an action. So when you dragged an action, when you dragged a requirement from over here into a milestone, that would create the action, and any user stories and checklist items that were relating to the requirement would also be related to that action. So that option still exists. So what we've done is add in a drop down here where you can select the conversion method, and this is a persistent setting. So whatever you have it set to, it will be remembered the next time that you come to the project builder. So you will want to pay attention to what conversion method you've got set. So requirements to actions, that allows me to, so that's the existing method that we've already got. The additional 2 conversion methods are requirements to milestones. So what happens there is if I drag a requirement onto the board, onto the project builder board, what that will do is create the requirement as a milestone, and then any related user story will be created as an action within that new milestone. And then the third option is user stories to actions, which allows you to convert individual user stories into actions. The benefit of that one is you might have multiple user stories within one requirement, but you need to convert one of those user stories against one milestone and another user story against a different milestone. So we're going to run through each of those examples here. So I'll leave it set to requirements to actions. And what I'm going to do is I've got my storyboard requirement, and you can see that I've got two user stories relating to that. So I'm just going to drag that over and put that into the sprint into sprint 1. So I'll let that go there. So what that's going to do is convert it will convert the requirement into an action, and then all of the user stories that are relating that were relating to the requirement have now also been related to that action. So that's obviously what we're used to seeing. Now what we're going to do is change that over to requirements to milestones. And I've got another one here. So what I don't want to put this into any of my existing milestones. I want to make a brand new milestone. And so what I'm going to do is drag this over, drop that onto the board. So what will happen here is I'll get a milestone called reports, and then an action for each of the individual user stories. So I've got my reports milestone, and then I've got 3 individual actions that represent the 3 user stories from that requirement. The third option is converting individual user stories to actions. So the big difference here is when I select this option, not only do I see my requirements, I also see my individual user stories as well. So if I want to convert both of these into one milestone, I can just drag the requirement card, and both of those user stories will be dropped into sprint 2 as 2 new actions. However, I might say, look, I'm going to get this user story done in sprint 2, so I'm going to drag that over there. So that converts that individual user story into an action within that milestone, but then I'm not sure when I'm going to get this one done. So I'm going to convert it, but I'm not going to put it into an individual sprint. I'm going to drop it into the sprint backlog. So this is allowing me to actually have 2 separate user stories from the same requirement, but actually split them out into 2 separate milestones on the project. So having spoken to a number of customers, they have various ways of using the project builder. So super excited to be able to deliver these enhancements for them. So look forward to your feedback on that one. So we've made a few enhancements to the timesheet to factor in various customer requests. So first of all, we've added in the ability to allow you to add in your own custom fields. So within the time log modal. So for example, if I'm entering time here and I double click in there, it's going to open up the time log modal for me. Now, these are all set fields. You can't remove them, and you can't, you previously couldn't add your own fields. Now what you've got the ability to do is on the timesheet settings, you can come in and actually use down the bottom here, you can select up to 5 fields that will appear in that time log modal at the bottom of that section. So these settings can be controlled by the individual user. They can also be controlled on the centrally via the control pad on the mission control console. So you can choose fields from the time log object that can be included here. The other feature that we've added in is an approval status on an individual row level. So we've always had the summary up here, but customers gave us some feedback saying, when I have something that's submitted or pending or rejected, it's quite hard to find that just by looking here if I've got multiple different actions on my list. So what we've done here is just added in an approvals section for each individual row. So you can see here, I can, I get a summary up the top for everything, but then if I need to drill down and get to the individual record, I can see where everything is in terms of pending, submitted, approved, or rejected, and then I could jump into the summary section and modify as required. So what we've also added in, for example, if I go and save my hours at the moment, you'll see that my total for the week is less than my hours per week target. So we have a setting here. I have it disabled at the moment. So basically, when I click Save and Submit, I'm going to get this pop-up notification that says your total hours is less than suggested. Do you still wish to submit? So I can click OK and then go ahead and make that save. But if I'm using that Save and Submit button every day, obviously it might become frustrating. So I might want to turn that off. So I can do that in my settings here. So if I click on Save and Submit and then I save that, I'll no longer get that pop-up when I'm using that Save and Submit button. And again, that's a setting that can be controlled for the individual user, or you can do it for via the control pad, like logging it for everyone. And the other main feature enhancement is the ability to now associate your time logs to issues. So if I'm logging time against this action on this project, I can come in, put my hours in, but by double clicking in there, I can also now associate that to an issue as well. So if I say, right, of the 3 issues that relate to this action, I was working on addressing this one. So that allows me to associate that time to that particular issue. So it works very much in the same way as logging hours against checklists do as well. So all of the hours have to relate to the action, but they'll also be captured on that issue. So you'll find that that there are fields on the issue that can be added to your page layout that allow you to see, how many billable or non-billable hours were spent resolving that issue. So we've introduced 2 new email notifications that are issued out in relation to someone's completion of the timesheet. So there's 2 email notifications. There's the timesheet submission reminder and the timesheet exception notification. So the timesheet submission reminder will go out to the individual person that is meant to be logging time, and the exception notification will go out to the person that is specified as their timesheet approver. So the submission reminder is an email that would be sent out at the end of the week if that person has not logged sufficient hours to meet the specified percentage. So you'll see here on the control pad of the console, we've got this new section here where we can schedule these emails. So each one can be set to a different point in time. So recommendation is that the submission reminder is sent out at the end of the current week, because it will report based on whether they've logged enough time for that week. Whereas the exception notification recommendation is that goes out early the following week, because it will report on what has been logged for last week. So idea being that you're giving the person a gentle reminder at the end of the week, and then if they haven't logged the time, then their manager gets an email letting them know that they haven't logged that time for last week. So you'll see in my example, I'm issuing out my submission reminders at 4 o'clock on a Friday. Again, that's time zone specific. So whatever time zone you're in, you'll receive it at 4 o'clock your time. And it's only going to be issued out to people if they've logged less than 90% of the hours per week that they're meant to log. So obviously you can choose to activate it. You can choose the delivery day, the delivery time, and the percentage threshold. If they're under that percentage, then they'll receive the email. And the exception notification works the same way. You set the day, the time, and that percentage threshold as well. So just taking a quick look at those two emails, the submission reminder literally comes out to that individual person, shows them what their target is, what they've actually done, letting them know they've received this purely because they haven't logged sufficient time, and then there's a breakdown of whether it was billable, non-billable, or holidays. The exception notification that will come out to the person that's nominated as the timesheet approver. So in this instance, you can see that I'm the timesheet approver for multiple people who haven't logged any time. So I'm receiving a summary. I can see how many hours should have been logged across everyone and how many have been. And again, getting an indication as to why I've received that, and then who I need to go and speak to try and get them to log that time. So one thing to be aware of, as well as activating the schedules here on the individual role records, there are two fields. So you can, if I just take a quick look at my record here, there are two checkboxes. So do you want to receive the timesheet submission reminder, and do you want to receive the exception notification? So as well as scheduling them on the control pad, you can opt individual people into receiving these emails. So if I want to receive the submission reminder for my own timesheet, I tick that box. If I want to receive the exception notification for people that I'm managing, I tick that box. A number of enhancements have been applied to the action pad. So as a reminder, you can access the action pad from a project overview on the action pad tab, or you can access it via the standalone tab, which you can get to from the progress pad on the mission control console. So some of the main features that have been added, we've added in some settings that you can configure, and these can be configured by an individual user for their own preferences, or you can choose to configure them for all users centrally from the control pad on the mission control console. So what this allows us to do, if I open that up, I can choose whether I display any of these out of the box fields. So, you know, if for example I'm not interested in tracking hours, then I can hide those columns. So just by unchecking those, they'll disappear from the table within the action log. The other thing that I can do is add in additional fields. So any fields that I've added to the action object, it might be custom fields or additional fields that already exist. I can choose to display those on the action log as well. So ultimately, I'm able to hide existing fields and also choose to add in up to 5 custom fields. And obviously, I select the fields here, and then I just say yes, I want to display those additional fields. So if I do that, they'll be added onto the table, and then that allows me to have more information on the table as my specific requirements demand. The other thing that we've added in is the ability to do a quick keyword search. So I can, so let's say I'm looking for something that relate, a specific word. Now that word might exist on the project, the milestone, the action, any field that I'm displaying on the table. So I can just type in the word, and that will actually reduce down. Any all of the records to only show me those that are matching the search term. So obviously all of those have data in their action name. They would have also been found, even if they didn't have data in the action name, they would have been pulled in because the milestone had data in as well. So if I want to clear that, I just click on that, and that will bring everything back. What I can also now do from the project overview is apply some custom filters. So previously the custom filters were only available from the standalone action pad. What we can do now is apply those filters in context of a project. The benefit there really is I'm going to be able to actually filter down and, like, for example, exclude things where the status might be complete. So I could come in here and say, right, I'm only looking for actions where they're still either planned or in progress, so only giving me an active to-do list right now. The other thing that we've done on the filters is added in an overall and or toggle for role filters. So previously, if I was searching for project owner and I was also searching for action owner, this would be using an or filter. So, for example, I could be saying, show me actions where I am the project owner, or where I am the action owner. So that would end up showing me all actions relating to a project that I own and all actions that I own across all projects. Whereas if I want to do it as an and, so I want to say I only want to look at actions relating to projects that I'm responsible for, and within that I only want to look at actions that I am responsible for. So I could toggle that over and make that an and filter instead. So you've got the ability to choose whether it's an and or an or across these role filters. And we've also added in the ability to just apply custom filters to based on any other custom field. So whether that's a field on the project milestone or action, you can apply those into your filters now as well. Okay, and the final feature that we're going to take a look at is the enhancements that have been made to the Gantt chart. So a couple of things here. We've added in the ability to access chatter from the individual records. So obviously, when you double click a record on the Gantt chart, you get this modal window show up where you can access key fields from the record. With the action, you can also log time, you can get through to the full record, and you can also now access the chatter feed for that record as well. So that's available on all records. If I double click into the milestone, you can see I can access chatter as well as the milestone key fields and the full page layout. Now, what the other thing that we've made an enhancement to with regards to those modals is you can choose which of these tabs each person has access to and which one loads by default when you open up the modal. And like any other tab control and in mission control, that's done on the role record for the individual person. So you'll see that I'm on my role record here. I've got a section. You'll need to add these fields to your page layout, but I've got sections here for the project, for the milestone, for the action, and for the checklist. And you can see for each one, I can determine, can I actually view these tabs and which one loads by default. So you can control it for each layer of the project plan. The other change we've made has really come at the request of numerous customers. Is previously we had two buttons up here called Add Week to Start and Add Week to End. And what you had to do was keep clicking the button, and it would extend the timeline of the project. Um, we've now changed that to work more dynamically. So what would previously happen is if I came over here and changed the dates of this to be, let's say, December, what would previously happen is the actual action would just disappear from the Gantt chart because it had fallen outside of the existing timeline. It would still be there in the background and it would reappear once you'd clicked the add week to end the appropriate number of times. But what you can, so what it will do now is as soon as we make that change, it's just automatically dynamically added in the required length of time on the timeline for us. So the buttons have disappeared. But it will all be controlled automatically as based on the changes that we're making to the timeline within the table. And the other feature that we've added in is the ability to control the settings from the control pad. So previously, each individual user, and they still can, each individual user can control the settings for their Gantt chart in terms of which columns are displayed. That can now also be done on the control pad, and that can be overridden for all users, similar to the timesheet and so on. So if I scroll down, I'll get to my Gantt chart settings. So I can now control all of those columns, whether they're available or not. And if I want to override everyone's individual preferences, I simply tick the box and click on save, and then that will actually that will override the settings for everyone. Okay, that's obviously all of the key features that we're gonna take a look at. Next question obviously is when are you going to get your hands on this stuff? So looking at the release schedule. So first of all, as I mentioned at the start, this is going to be available from the App Exchange for you to manually upgrade as of the 10th of September. On the 18th of September, we'll be automatically upgrading all sandbox orgs, and on the 25th of September, it will automatically upgrade to all production orgs. So with all that said, obviously I'd like to thank you for your time. Hope you're as excited as we are with all these new features that are coming into the product. Like always, obviously there's a variety of resources available on the website, training videos, knowledge base. Obviously the release notes and this video will be accessible from there as well. And we would always love to hear your feedback and any suggestions you've got for future enhancements. Thank you for your time. Bye.